on episode number 41 of the Path to Follow podcast with Mac Ford. Mac, thanks so much for coming to campus today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. Great to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So what's it like for you now? What are you up to now that you're coaching girls lacrosse at NDP? How's that going so far?
So it's my passion. So the girls game is a great game. This is my 6th season coaching at Notre Dame Prep. So it's really my passion. During the day, I'm a full-time financial advisor, but the best 2 hours of my day in the spring come when I get to go out and coach these young ladies lacrosse at Notre Dame Prep.
How'd you get into the women's game? How'd you get into the girls lacrosse?
So as you might find down the road, Jake, when you when you get married, you might have some daughters. And being a lacrosse player growing up, we had 2 daughters back to back, and then we had 3 boys. But the daughters started, getting a stick in their hands and playing, and so I was looking for a place for them to play, and it was Lutherville Timonium Rec Council, and watched the first year because I knew nothing about women's lacrosse. It was a foreign sport to me. Really didn't pay attention when I was growing up. But then the second year, I got involved, started to become a coach, and was coaching with actually another woman who was a referee. So she helped him with the rules and got into it. And from there, I coached the girls in their club program. And for whatever reason, was invited by a gal named Sue Heather to jump aboard the U.S. Lacrosse women's program and coach Team USA with her. It was sort of a leap of faith from her that I could add any value whatsoever to the women's game, but that's really where I got into it with both feet and really enjoyed their game. The women's game is sort of the type of game that I used to play growing up, where the middies are playing both defense and offense. There's not as much specialty involved in the women's game, so it's really it's sort of what I gravitated towards and enjoyed.
What are the major differences that you find between the women's and the men's games today? I think the up and down, like midfielders stay offense and defense a little bit more, and there's more substitution and specialization in the men's game, which kind of slows it down a bit today.
Yep.
But what value do you find in helping the women or the girls see the game from a male point of view? Like, how you're seeing a lot of male coaches in the women's game, and I think that they do provide a different vantage point or can add some different dimensions to the sport.
Well, you're right. The biggest difference is the flow of the game. The women's game is really what the men's game used to be. When your father and I played the game, it was middies were playing defense and offense. Now, not so much. We get a lot of girls in and out, but I'll run 3 midfield lines like the men used to do back in the day, and they're up and down playing, offense and defense. The real value that I see myself bringing to the women's game is really individual skills, the art of dodging. It's a challenge in the women's game. They don't grow up. The girls don't grow up where you and I might have gone out and played flag football or touch football in the neighborhood, where we'd sort of learn how to dodge, whether we're going out for a pass or running the ball, we're trying to dodge our opponent. The girls really aren't doing that. So when I saw the girls game, whether it's at the middle school level or the high school level, or even at the college level, the girls' game's a speed game. So they weren't really into, big time change of direction moves or setting up an opponent for a dodge. And so just bringing sort of the art of dodging, how to set up a defender for an inside roll or how to change directions 3 or 4 times, even if you're slower than your defender, how to use leverage, get inside their stick, this and that, that boys learn because they have to learn because they're being beaten on all the time. They have to learn how to change directions and keep their head up, and those are the types of things that we find that we're able to bring to the women's game and really educate these young ladies on, a different way to look at the game.
Mm-hmm. And how long did it take you to really pick up women's lacrosse? Because I have a couple sisters, and I remember watching my sister in high school play, and then she played in college, and it's still, the rules are hard to pick up. Mm-hmm. And you said you had some training with a referee. But how long did it really take you to grasp the sport of women's lacrosse and kind of gain a sense of confidence as a coach?
I think for me, it probably took a couple years. Still the biggest challenge is when guys see the game is what they call shooting space. So you see girl streaming down the field all by herself, and she takes a shot, goes in, but the referee blows the whistle simultaneously, and it's because another young lady on the other team got relatively close into the vision of that shooter's, in between the shooter and the goal. And so it's called shooting space. The goal's disallowed, and they come up to the 8-meter line, and then it's a free position. They call it a free position. And they blow the whistle, and then it's a race to the goal, or it's an outside shot from there. It's sort of a free shot. So that's, most men, when they see that, they're like, what's going on here? I don't understand this.
Or they're like, it's almost like a foul shot. It's like, how do you not score that, right? That's what probably men are saying.
Yeah,
it's harder though.
It's much easier said than done, no question. Yeah. More and more today, especially in the college game, you're seeing girls take outside shots from there, just wind up, and they're with the new sticks and the new stringing. Now girls can use mesh in their sticks over the last 2 years, so you're seeing a lot better accuracy on those outside shots. So that's one of the things that is still a stickler. In college, there's now continuation. So if the whistle blows simultaneously to the young lady shooting and scoring, they're going to allow the goal. In high school, that's not the case. They're not going to allow that goal. You have to have it set up for an 8-meter free position shot. But the other aspects of the game, it used to be that simple things, when you just called a timeout, all the girls would have to just drop their sticks wherever they were.
That's no more?
It's no more. So now you have free movement, and even if you get whistled, if I'm clearing the ball and I get fouled, get whistled, I can continue on. I don't have to stop. I can stop and have the fouler go behind me 5 meters, but I can continue on. So if you watch the women's game now, it's free movement. So even on a whistle, nobody has to stop. It's not like freeze tag anymore. Girls are moving just like the guys' game. And if there's a foul, it's not a flagrant foul, you can as a ball carrier, you can decide when you want to go. So literally, some girls don't even stop. You'll hear a whistle, but no longer will they stop.
It's interesting you have that choice, like mid-flow of stopping or continuing playing through the whistle.
So if you see it now, it's much more of a free-flowing. The only really differences now are when they have an 8-meter arc around the goal. Well, it's not around the goal, but it's in front of the goal. And so that's called the critical scoring area. So any fouls within that area will result in an 8-meter shot. Mm-hmm. As a defender, you can't just stay in that 8-meter area. It's also like basketball. It's a 3-second call. Mm-hmm. So you have to be within a stick. Actually, in high school, it's an arm length. In college, you get away with a stick length from your opponent. But if there's a 3-second call in that area, then that results in an 8-meter shot as well. But those are the big differences. But the actual stick work, we were able to bring a lot of what the guys do with their stick work to the women's game as well. When I coach girls, I work on stick work, working with their wrists a lot more than just pushing the ball with their arms. The sticks that the girls now get to use have really been revolutionized. So the stringing now, 2 years ago, they allowed mesh pockets in girls sticks, which is terrific. So there's a lot of opportunities to grow the women's game, not only rules wise, but also just equipment wise. It's really revolutionized the game. Gary Gate has a number of sticks he and his brother Paul have designed that have really, a lot of girls enjoy using them.
Something that I've noticed from watching women's is they understand timing of cutting, I think even a little bit better than men do today. That's just almost a lost art in the men's game because it's so specialized today. And you might have a crease attackman or a couple attackmen, a couple middies who know how to time their cuts well, but the women are always moving, always picking off ball, always timing their cuts. I think pretty well. I think that's something that the men can learn from the women.
Well, it's also the free flowing of the women's game where you're not waiting for a line change, right? So the middies are constantly moving from defense to offense, and so they're recognizing fast break opportunities, secondary break opportunities, and so they do a very, very good job of cutting off ball, moving without the ball. So those are the things that certainly men can take a step back and watch, because you rarely see in a 6-on-6 in the men's game, a midi cutting right down for a goal. You're just not seeing that. In a fast break you are, but not really on a 6-on-6. You're seeing setups, you're seeing a lot of outside shots. Right. So shooters have gotten better with the outside shots, but you're really not seeing a lot of off ball moving without the ball. But the better teams, whether they do it on themselves, the better teams, you do have that nice flow in the men's game. I mean, that's the difference. Everybody's good, but what teams work off ball the best, I think, have the advantage.
Off ball chemistry for sure. Mac, I'd love to know a little bit more about your time at Gilman and maybe the first time that you came to Gilman or decided to come to Gilman for school. What was that like, your first time coming here?
So it was interesting. I applied to come to Gilman in the 7th grade, and Reddy Finney, who was the headmaster at that time, called my dad after I took the exams and said, we'd really love to have Mac as a student here, but he's not quite ready. And, but I have a specialist here that can really get him up and ready. So my 7th grade year, I tutored and then at the end of the year took the exam again and passed it. But so I was grateful. I didn't want to do that. I had no interest in getting extra tutoring at that time, but I was, hindsight, it was fantastic that Mr. Finney called my dad and had him come in and they came up with a game plan to help get me in. So came in the 8th grade at the old middle school. It's been redesigned since I left. But at that time, I remember coming in, and I had just started playing lacrosse, maybe in the 6th grade, but I broke my leg in the 6th grade, so I didn't really play. Then I played in the 7th grade rec program. But I came in and saw these racks and racks of these lacrosse sticks. So all these middle schoolers brought in a lacrosse stick, and instead of carrying them to class, they put them in these racks. And I was like, man, this is it. Everybody must be incredible at this game of lacrosse here. I'm excited, but I'm at the bottom of the barrel. But got to know people very, very quickly, just because for me, we would have break and we'd go out on the basketball court in front of the middle school, and I'd play basketball. Got to know a lot of people really quickly because I could play basketball back then. Wasn't very tall, but
point guard, right?
But a point guard back then. My glory days in 8th grade. So I made friends just on the athletic field, and some of my best friends today are the guys I met in 8th grade here at Gilman.
And you were a baseball player up until?
Played baseball all the way up until 6th grade, 7th grade. I played both.
Played both.
Played both.
Who gave you a lacrosse stick? Who told you that you might be interested in this new sport?
So it was my dad. He played lacrosse and went to Washington and Lee, played lacrosse at WNL. And he said, oh, you know, I really loved baseball growing up, putting on the big league uniform, going out to the rec park and playing. So that was I really enjoyed that, really enjoyed football and basketball. And he said, you know, I'm going to let you play baseball, but, you know, I want you to play lacrosse, try it out, see what you like. And I have a feeling that you're going to really like it better than baseball. And it's like, oh, no way, Dad. Mm-hmm. I'll give it a whirl, but that's probably not going to be the case. So I enjoyed it, but really started to really enjoy it, you know, when I came here and started to put a lot of time in, seeing that I'd watch the varsity play, go out and seeing some of the great players. My dad actually took me in 1976. We came here before I even went to Gilman. I was in elementary school. We came and watched Gilman, had a great team in 76 play. And I was like, wow, it's a great game. So we would throw the ball in the backyard, but I didn't really play organized lacrosse until around the 7th grade.
What was your high school lacrosse experience like? When did that kick off? Freshman year, sophomore year, and when did you start really contributing to the team for high school lacrosse?
So middle school, I had middle school lacrosse here. So yeah, I could tell that I was not near the top. I was in the middle of the pack of talent at that particular time. So I started putting more and more work into my game, carried the stick everywhere I went. And then freshman year, I was lucky enough to make the JV. And that was a great thing for me at that particular time. And didn't really play a whole lot. It was like sort of like the fourth man, but they didn't really play the fourth man a whole lot. So, but I would get in and to wrap up some games. And we had a really good team. We won the JV championship at that time. And the varsity also had a really good team at that time as well. I think they won the championship as a varsity. So my good friend Del Dressel, who was on your podcast a while back, you know, he made varsity as a freshman. And at that time, there were really only a handful of Gilman guys who ever made varsity as a freshman, let alone play and start. Another guy was a guy who I watched before was a guy named Jim Wilkerson. It was a Gilman sports legend. So Del made it. I was on JV, and then the next year, really wanted to make the varsity. Coach Dave Allen came to me and said, you're really the last one cut, and I want you to go and be a leader on JV and play JV. Come up and play for me the next year. So I was really disappointed in that, but when played JV, had a great JV career that year. Had a ball, won the championship again. I learned what leadership was all about. And then the next year came up and Dave Allen retired. And so we had a brand new coach, a guy named Mickey Fenzel came in. And so I made varsity and started and had a terrific year. And we had a very good year that year. And then the next year we tied with St. Paul's for the championship. There was no championship game, unfortunately. And then was lucky enough to go to North Carolina after that. So when I talk to my girls at Notre Dame Prep, we have over 100 girls come out for 3 teams, and we don't cut. So there's a spot for every girl on our team. But in today's game, everybody wants to make varsity as a freshman. Their parents want them to make varsity as a freshman, and at least as a sophomore, they got to make varsity, and they're crushed if they don't. But I tell the girls right away that I did not make varsity until my junior year. And being cut from varsity my sophomore year was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because if I had played varsity my sophomore year, I would have literally not played. And there's a difference between practice and playing a game. And you learn a lot in practice, but you learn the most when you play in a game, when there's more pressure involved. And so by me playing in that game as a JV prepared me to come up and catapult and sort of leap a couple of players that were ahead of me that were already on varsity when I got to varsity the next year playing as a junior. So I have no problem cutting a young lady, sophomore, freshman, to play JV if I think they're going to be really good. And they might play for us at that year, but they might be better on JV. I'll cut them to JV.
Get some experience playing some games, get the leadership experience, which you talked about, and you can make some jumps the next year on varsity and actually get out there for sure.
Exactly. We had a young lady who sort of was a goalie, and she was not selected as a freshman. She played fresh soph, and the next year she jumped from fresh soph to the varsity. She jumped, and there were girls in her class that played JV, and she jumped them, and so she's our starting goalie this year at Notre Dame Prep as a senior.
What kind of things do you remember doing your freshman and sophomore year on JV to kind of get the edge, and what would you do on your own to improve your game, and maybe who are some of the players that you watched growing up?
So some of the players growing up. So my idol growing up was Eamon McEneaney, who played for Cornell, and he was one of the all-time great attackers, and he was my size, so I enjoyed watching him. Another Cornell player, Mike French, was a great player, and these guys in the 70s. There was a guy who would go down to Mount Washington and watch MLC in Mount Washington play, a guy named Bob Grebe, who was a great attacker, and I watched how he moved with and without the ball, and he was also my size. So I would constantly look for players that were sort of my size, about 5'9", 5'10", what they did with the ball and without the ball. And my dad was the one that really said, Mac, when you go to these games, I want you to pick out the best player on the field and watch what he does with the ball and does without the ball, because what you do without the ball is just as important. So I'd watch them, and then I would go out and I strung lights up in my backyard, and I'd come home from basketball practice or football practice, off season, and just go out and practice for, hours at times, because I just loved it. I felt like practice was like a game to me. Mm-hmm. And so it was just a joy to be outside. And it could be freezing out. It didn't matter to me. I had my gloves on, my stick. I was working on dodging. I was working on shooting, that type of thing. So it's really, and I tell the girls that I coach, it's really what you do when no one's watching determines the type of player you're going to be. Yeah. It's not coming out here now when everybody's here. You're going to get better as a teammate, but it's what you're doing off season. And what your motivation is to determine what type of player you're going to be this season.
You're not going to get enough reps just at one NDP practice. Right. You have to go home and throw against the wall and go out with a bucket of balls on the weekend and shoot. And I try to tell some of the younger guys that I do lessons with, because parents want their kids to be really good, and they push them, which is great, but it really is that obsession. Like you have to be out there when it's snowing and actually kind of enjoy it. Like you have to have a sick obsession to really make those leaps if you want to be really, really good. How did the UNC commitment, how did that transpire? What was that like? And were you always looking at UNC? Did you want to go to UNC, or did you have some other options in mind?
So back in the day, there was a summer league called Heroes, and there was down in Anne Arundel County. There was a Heroes summer league, and also in Baltimore County, Howard County, combined. So I grew up in a place called Sherwood Forest in the summertime. Our parents had a cottage down there, so I played in the Anne Arundel County Heroes League, and we would play within that league different teams, but we would also play Baltimore's Heroes League. And so the coaches would come to that summer league and evaluate talent. There was no club lacrosse at that time. It was just a summer league. So Willie Scroggs of North Carolina, I didn't know he was there, but came to a couple of my games, and I guess I played well, and so I was on his radar. So I thought I was going to go to maybe Washington and Lee, Jack Emmer was the coach there. They were Division I at that time. My father went there. Cornell was another one I was really interested in, mainly because of Mike French and Eamon McEneaney, and they're great teams back there. And Richie Moran was the coach there. But then my senior year, I got a call from Coach Willie Scroggs, and he said, "We're interested in you. We'd like you to, come play at North Carolina." So, needless to say, I went down there and loved it. And at that time, they were the up-and-coming team. They were the team that a lot of all-metro players from the Baltimore area and a lot of great players from Long Island were gravitating towards and coming down. And so it was sort of a no-brainer. We had friends that lived in Henderson, North Carolina that we visited growing up, so I knew a great family there. It was very close to Chapel Hill. So it was a great opportunity. I never thought that he would be interested in me, and went down there. And my senior year here was their first year where they exploded onto the scene, went undefeated, and beat Johns Hopkins in the national championship up at Princeton in a terrific game. So my freshman year, they had everybody back, and we were lucky enough to go undefeated again and win a championship, which was a thrill.
What was that like, freshman year, undefeated champions?
So it was great. As a freshman, everybody back. In my mind, we were not going to lose. I mean, you had that. It was the law of expectations. We expected to win every game, and I just came in with that expectation in that for that year, and we won every game. And I was lucky to be able to play. I was really the fourth attacker, and that fourth attacker got to play. So I was able to get some time. But it was just the feeling of coming into a championship team with the majority of people coming back that you knew was terrific. It was just a different mindset. And so we try to use that same mindset, coaching. I try to give these girls, look, it's really, you want to anticipate good things to happen each and every game, and expect them. And I think if you expect it to happen, and it's not a cockiness, but you're expecting to play well, you're expecting to do what you can do to the best of your ability, I think you're going to find good things happen constantly.
What was it like playing for Hall of Fame coach Willie Scroggs for 4 years?
So Coach Scroggs, very, very interesting. When he was coaching, we didn't really get into many serious conversations. He was, standoff. He really didn't go over to coach and talk to him a whole lot. He didn't have a whole lot to say. When he ran practices, though, I mean, you could tell he was in charge in practices, during games, what have you. But Coach didn't really say a whole lot. But I got to know Coach really well after I graduated. It was like he opened up, and we're very, very close friends now. Coach had a beard when he was coaching because he wanted to look older, and so had a beard. But when he shaved that beard off finally, it was like a whole new coach. So he was a terrific coach, enjoyed it. But our relationship is even better now, which is great than it was playing for him, because there's more communication. And I was a senior captain, and so we'd have a lot of communication that period of time. But now it's great, and if I need tickets to a North Carolina basketball game, he's the first one I call. So he's my go-to.
Thinking back to your experience at Gilman playing lacrosse, is there a moment that is really memorable to you, or a game that really sticks out into your mind playing lacrosse here?
Well, it was such great memories. I mean, I think as a competitor, you always think of the one that got away. And so my senior year, I think of two games when you mentioned that. One was we played boys Latin early in the season, and just crushed them. We played really well. I think we won 19-6. So last game of the season, pouring down rain. we're thinking, well, let's just get this over with, because a lot of the guys had a prom to go to later on that night, and we didn't want to delay it till the next day, right? So come out here at Gilman and play it, and so mentally we just weren't as sharp as we needed to be. Ended up losing in overtime, 10-9. Great game in the mud. So that was a memorable game. Still don't hear the end of it from all my friends from Boys Latin on that game. Then another game that year, we played St. Paul's. We beat St. Paul's, at their place, and over here on our family day, packed crowd. St. Paul's went up big on us. They had a terrific team, and they were up by at least 7 goals, and we came back and had an opportunity to tie the game at 15. Last second shot, and just missed, went off the pipe, and they beat us 15-14 in a great game. But those two are memorable games because we lost, but they were great games because just the inner workings of the mentality of our team on the Boys Latin, and then on the coming back on the St. Paul's side of things. Yeah. So we still were able to win a championship. We had to share the championship because there was no championship game, unfortunately. But we had an incredible team that year. We had Del Dressel, Joey Savold, which are Hall of Fame lacrosse players. So we had a great team throughout.
How about some of your mentors at Gilman, or some of the teachers and coaches who really played a hand in your development as a student, as a player, as a person?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is my 8th grade math teacher, algebra teacher, a guy named Chip Tompkins, who was the assistant lacrosse coach to Dave Allen for many, many years. And Chip was a great person. I came in from a public school, came into Gilman, and I think so in the middle school, he was the algebra teacher, and I think it was trimester. So my first trimester, they would only give H for honors, P and for pass, and F for fail. And then they would give 1, 2, or 3 for effort. 1 was best effort, 2 mediocre, 3 below, right? So I got an F1 in algebra my first trimester. And he said, my comments was, Mac is really working hard. It's just not clicking right now. So I worked hard with him. He gave me some extra things to do. And then the next trimester came back with H1. And so that was great. And he helped me over some issues I was having in algebra. And then on the lacrosse field, he was one of the middle school coaches, and I'm playing catch with him 8th grade year. And he says, Mac, I really want you to use your wrists more. Use your wrists. You're throwing them more with your arms. I really want to get your wrist nice and supple and use it with. And so it just clicked. I started throwing a lot more accurate, a lot more juice on the ball when I'm playing catch back and forth. And that one tidbit, I'm teaching that today to my girls.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Use their wrists more.
Yeah.
And so going all the way back to 8th grade, I was at the right place at the right time for this great teacher of both academic and athletic. He got with me, saw something I wasn't doing, and corrected it and helped me go forward. So right away he had a great impact. I mean, all the teachers were terrific here. Mm-hmm. I can remember taking a math class with Mr. George Chan Lee, who was a legendary lacrosse coach here and what have you. But he was a stickler in his class. I mean, you had to do it, and if you didn't do it right, you were back on Saturday, with him doing it better. And that was a great person to learn from too. The discipline and getting it right. And if you didn't do your homework correctly, you're coming back and doing it right in front of him.
Love it.
But we had some great they I guess there's probably a couple still around, but I know that many are no longer here.
Yeah, a lot of the teachers at Gilman hang around. They don't go anywhere. Yeah. They stay here. So that's one of the things I like about Gilman so much is when I came in for my interview or when I was meeting people for the first time, it's like a lot of the teachers and coaches have just stayed here, and there's something special about that
Yep.
because there's no reason to leave, it's a good sign.
Well, it's great. I mean, the former athletic director, Tim Holly.
Yep.
I remember watching him as an eighth grader. He was the star of the football team, player of the year. And Gilman had a great football team that year. And I remember him going on the pen and doing some great things and then coming back to Gilman and then becoming the athletic director. And now I think he's over in advancement. But he's been here and
yep. Had him on the podcast too.
Yeah.
He's the man. What was it like playing football here at Gilman too? You're a three sport athlete: basketball, lacrosse, and football.
Yeah, football is great. Football is the greatest game day sport.
Yeah,
right.
It's a lot of hot summer, sweaty summers for the game.
Practice.
Yep.
Worst practicing sport around, especially but it's the greatest game day sport because all your teammates, everybody is so pumped up, jacked up, enthusiastic, and it was great. You win a game, it's fantastic. Everybody's celebrating. Nothing like football. Mm-hmm. And we had, legendary coach Alex Sotir, which really created just a terrific powerhouse in the MSA. It was the MSA at that time. Now it's the MIAA, but the MSA. We played a lot of, great public schools like Poly. At that time, we always had a matchup with Poly, and those were great games. And then you had the Calvert Halls, Loyolas, and Mount St. Joe's, and what have you. But so that was just a great time. I played varsity my junior and senior year. Basketball, I played for Coach Sherm Bristow. My junior year was my last time in basketball, and then lacrosse, was great. So,
what was Sotir like as a coach?
He was a very hard disciplinarian, and which most football coaches are. Yeah. But you did it his way, and he got results. And if you did it his way, you'd get results. Mm-hmm. So he was great. Learned a lot from Coach Sotir. Actually played with his son lacrosse, and he went to Virginia a number of years ahead of me, and then played with him at Mount Washington. So, but Mr. Sotir was a terrific coach.
Mm-hmm. So when you were at University of North Carolina, how did you really become, from your freshman year really through your senior year and really through your lacrosse career, how did you become such a great attackman? What were those ingredients to success for you to become one of the best attackmen of all time?
Well, it's it's pretty easy if you break it down to it. It's the I was practicing when no one else was. Mm-hmm. So I would go. We had a turf field, and there was the law building was right next to turf field, but the lights from the law building actually shone on on the turf field. So I would get my freshman year, I'll never forget. I would get the one of the best defenders at Carolina. He was a senior, and I got to be good friends with him pretty quick. And I asked him to meet me out. Would he meet me out? Before he would go out at night, would he meet me out and do some extra one-on-ones? And this was just the light of the law office or the law school building shining on the turf. And he said yes. So we would go out and we'd do one-on-ones, and I'd, and practices after practice, I'd grab somebody and we'd do one-on-ones, and I was just constantly just working on that. And because I'd gone up to when I was still at Gilman, I'd go up and practice at Hopkins Homewood Field. And I remember watching Jeff Cook down at the other end of the field, and he was just practicing his moves. And he would be diving, coming around the goal and diving and shooting, And I was just watching and he was first team All-American. So I was like, well, I guess that's how he got to be that way. So I just got consumed by practice, and then I'd watch other great attackers, what they did, with the ball, without the ball. And I think just practice paid off, and that's all I could really say. It's there, and I tell these girls, there's when I coach them, there's no magic bullet. It's the girls who are playing are the ones that are practicing when no one's watching them. They're out in the backyard doing something. They're consumed by it, and I think when it becomes a game to you, when practice becomes a game, that you enjoy practicing so much that it's no longer work.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the ones that are really excel and get to be, great players in whatever sport.
For sure. And I love the advice of watching a player, because I try to tell guys that too. Find a player who has a skill set that you don't, or maybe plays a position that you play, but has developed their skill set, and try to emulate that on the field. It sounds simple, but it's such valuable advice. Watch someone. So I'd love to get to your book recommendation today, if that's
sure.
That's all right. Would you bring
sure.
it
I brought the copy. I have about 10 or 12 of these books. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. My father gave it to me back in the day. He said, you really want to read this book. And it is the greatest people skills book of all time. It's a very easy read, but it has unbelievable points that help any young man, young woman, older man, older woman deal with people in a much, much better way. Because we're always selling ourselves to not only our friends for the very first time, our spouses, our girlfriends. I mean, everybody's a salesman. Mm-hmm. It's not like that, oh, no, I don't know how to sell. You're selling yourself every day. So this book really gives a person great insight into, and Dale Carnegie goes over different stories to bring his points to home, but it's great insight on basic people skills, mm-hmm. the art of listening, the art of the most important thing in a person's life, is their name, and you want to get really good at knowing names of people you meet, mm-hmm. because that's the sweetest sound in their lives, is hearing their name called. So I have this bookmark in one of my great sections. It's called In a Nutshell: six ways to make people like you. And he goes over 6 principles within this chapter, and then he gives a nutshell of it. And so I have a bookmark all the time here. And to give you an idea, one is principle 1: become genuinely interested in other people when you're talking to them. Don't talk about yourself. The other principle is smile. Constantly smile when you're talking to others. Remember that a person's name to that person is the sweetest, the most important sound in any language, which is key. And I got to keep telling myself that I'm great at remembering names, and unfortunately, I fumble a lot. But it's a great principle. 4, be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. 5, talk in terms of other people's interests. Mm-hmm. And 6, make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. So great nuggets throughout the book. It's a classic, but it's still available anytime. And so I had all my kids read it. I give it to them today. I said, here, you want to reread this, right, because it's important.
For whatever you do. Sales is teaching. I feel like I'm in sales.
You're in sales.
It's just personal relationships, and
it's
getting people to buy in. Got to buy into the Great Gatsby in my class. Like, I have to be able to sell that to you and make you want to read more of it.
Right.
Not really. I mean, the book does that on its own, but I have to make the class interesting for you. So I think that's super important, that book. And when did you first pick it up?
I picked it up in college. Yep.
And you were speech communications?
Speech communications. So my dad was a very successful financial advisor at Legg Mason. And So in the back of my mind, I always thought that I would get into sales, even though I was sort of a quieter person. Didn't see myself as the door-to-door salesman, and didn't know if I could go knock on doors to sell a product or service that time. But I thought that if I was a speech communication major, I would have an opportunity to learn how to talk in front of people, how to get up and get my point of view across. And so it worked for me. And I came out of school, got into sales. My first job was selling copiers for a company called SCMI Incorporated, and they sold Ricoh copiers, and wasn't very successful in that. And then got into my first love, which was commercial real estate. I had an opportunity to get involved there, and got involved there and did fairly well. And then got into the investment business about 12 years later or so. So it's been great. And speech communications is a great major for anybody who doesn't know exactly what they want to do.
Right. If you could teach a senior elective or a course at Gilman, do you have any ideas? Would you teach a speech communications? I guess that's kind of like an English course, but is there any course that you would teach that you feel like high school guys should know how to do?
I think all high schoolers should be a course in finance, on personal finance, how to invest, how to save, what interest means on a credit card, how to use a credit card, how to keep track of expenses, how to budget, all things that really schools don't teach in high school. Mm-hmm. And, they don't really teach in, it's not a mandatory course in college.
Right.
And so you have so many people coming out that really don't know how to handle money when they come out of school. They come out of school in debt because they're borrowing to pay for school, but they don't understand when they start working, how to save, how to budget, what it takes to invest, how you can become very, very wealthy over a long period of time, investing a little at a time. Mm-hmm. So that would be a great course that any school that I'd like to teach at any school if I had the opportunity. It's just something that I see by being in this business, that most young people have no concept of.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Mac, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. Is there anything we didn't cover that you think we can touch on here at the end, or do you think we did all right today?
I think we did a great job today. Great job. I enjoyed being on here. I just found out about your podcast just a couple of weeks back, so we need to get the word out to the alumni.
Yeah. Here's another question that I've been asking some of the guests: is there anyone from your time at Gilman or anyone involved in the Gilman community that you think I should try to get on here and talk to a little bit?
Well, there's plenty of great alumni to come back and talk. I would say, athletically, if we just looked athletically, have you had Jim Wilkerson on?
I haven't. I need to get Jim.
He was probably one of the all-time great athletes to ever come through Gilman.
His son's playing on the team. He's a freshman on
is he?
On the team.
Okay, so you got to get Wilkie here. Another great guy. He's been very successful. He's a guy named in the 70s. Is a guy named Dave Hubeck. He was a great attacker and then played at Princeton. But he is a very fascinating guy. He'd be interested. If you could ever get this guy Chip Tompkins, former teacher.
Yep.
He lives down in Virginia. He was a great coach. I thought he was going to be my coach. I mean, when Dave Allen left, I thought Chip Tompkins was going to be the coach, but for whatever reason, they went a different direction. But he would have been a terrific coach. Mike Sotir, son of Alex Sotir, great defender for Virginia, but would give you some great insight into Gilman and that area of football, and he's a very successful contractor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'll try to get those guys on, and best of luck to you with this season with NDP. Hope you guys have a good one. It sounds like things are looking pretty good, shaping up well in the second game, right?
Yeah, second game tomorrow.
Right. And good luck.
We're excited to be out every day. We're just thrilled.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's the best. Doesn't get any better.
Especially with this weather out there.
Oh, my gosh.
Well,
and the facilities that you all have here now are unbelievable.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's great. So do you ever use the field, the turf field for lacrosse, or is it just the grass field for lacrosse?
We've been using Brown, the turf football field, until Chanley gets a little bit greener, a couple more weeks here.
Right. So you use both?
Use both.
Okay.
Usually practice on Chanley in April.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, amazing fields. We're excited about it.
Good time to be a coach here, Coach. That's great.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.